The last thing I expected was to find my baby photo cut in half. I was visiting home for Thanksgiving, the first time in over a year, and while my parents were out buying last-minute groceries, I wandered into the attic looking for an old sketchbook I'd left behind. That's when I found the box. It was labeled Vanessa, Childhood Keepsakes. Curious, I opened it, and there it was. A picture from our second birthday. Vanessa and me, wearing matching pink dresses, frosting smeared across our cheeks. But only one face remained. Mine had been ripped away, and taped on the back was a sticky note in my mother's handwriting. Too bad Hannah always refused to smile. I should have been surprised, but I wasn't. I had known it since I was 7. That in this house love had conditions, and I never met them. I'm Hannah Blake, born just 5 minutes before my twin sister Vanessa. But if you had ever visited our childhood home in Franklin, Tennessee, you would have thought we were born 5 years apart. Vanessa was the golden girl, perfect curls, perfect dimples, perfect everything. She was soft-spoken, girly, always in pink. I liked jeans, silence, and scribbling stories in the corners of notebooks. Too moody, my mom used to whisper. Too much like her father's side. Vanessa got the new dresses, the ballet classes, the sparkling birthday parties with ponies and face painting. I got hand-me-downs, library cards, and the job of picking up wrapping paper afterward. Every time I asked why, the answer was always the same. Because you're older, Hannah. You need to be more responsible. But the only thing I seemed responsible for was being invisible. There was one time, our 7th birthday, Vanessa had an outdoor party, complete with a 3-tier cake and a Polaroid camera. I was asked to take photos. Not be in them, take them. When I asked why I didn't have any presents with my name on them, my mom gave me a look so casual it burned. You never said what you wanted, she said. Vanessa's just easier to shop for. It wasn't just birthdays. At dinner, she got the best portions. When she spilled her juice, I was scolded for not watching her. When she broke a vase, I was grounded for setting a bad example. If she earned a B+, the whole neighborhood heard about it. If I got an A, my mom nodded once and changed the subject. Once, I brought home a school art award. My father took one glance at the certificate and said, "You're already good. You don't need praise." It was meant to be comforting, but it felt like someone closing a door I wasn't allowed to open. The only person who ever looked at me and truly saw me was my grandmother, Estelle. She was the first to hand me a paintbrush, the first to keep my drawings on her fridge. When I got sad, she'd give me butter cookies and say, "You're like me, Hannah. People overlook you at first, but once they see you, they can't look away." That sentence became my shield. I didn't expect birthday gifts anymore. I didn't expect applause. I just kept drawing, kept learning how to sew up my own clothes while Vanessa and Mom went shopping every Saturday. I taught myself how to do my own homework when my mom was too busy curling Vanessa's hair for a school play. I stopped crying when Mom said, "Why do you always look so sullen? Can't you be more like your sister?" I was 13 when I first realized that some children grow up learning how to be loved, and others grow up learning how to survive without it. But I thought, foolishly, that maybe once we grew up, once we were older and wiser, things would even out. That maybe love would finally be fair. I was wrong. Let me tell you exactly how wrong I was. I was 18 when my parents finally said it out loud. No more pretending. No more soft-spoken favoritism disguised as practicality. No, this time it was clear, raw, and impossible to forget. We were sitting in the living room on a hot June afternoon, the ceiling fan spinning lazily overhead. I'd just graduated high school, valedictorian, scholarship finalist, 2 state art awards under my belt. Vanessa? She was graduating too. Lower GPA, no scholarships. But she looked radiant in her white dress and pearl earrings. Mom bought her those pearls for graduation. I got a slice of cake with a candle that wouldn't light. Dad cleared his throat and said, "We've reviewed the finances. The college fund can only support one of you." He didn't even look at me when he said it. His eyes were on Vanessa, like he wanted her to feel safe before the words landed. Mom chimed in, voice light, like she was explaining the weather. Vanessa got into Belmont University. She'll need the full amount. You're strong, Hannah. You'll figure something out. That was it. No apology. No regret. No room for negotiation. Just one sentence that echoed through every inch of my chest like a sentence being passed by a judge. You're strong, Hannah. You'll figure something out. It wasn't just the money. It was the final, unspoken confirmation that in their eyes, Vanessa was always the one worth investing in. And I was the one who'd be fine without. So I packed my bags and left 2 weeks later with exactly $217 in my checking account, a suitcase of worn jeans, and the old Dell laptop my grandmother left me before she died. That laptop was the only thing of value I owned, and the only inheritance I'd ever get. I moved into a basement apartment near Middle Tennessee State University. The walls were yellowed and cracked. The floor groaned under every step. The air smelled faintly of mildew and burnt coffee. But it was mine. No one told me to smile. No one told me to act more like Vanessa. It was freedom, even if it tasted like instant noodles and sounded like buses screeching past my window at 2 a.m. During the day, I took full-time classes in graphic design. At night, I worked the register at a 24-hour convenience store. I kept a sketch pad in my bag, scribbling design concepts between customers, trying to stay awake. Some nights, I stood there so long my legs would tremble. But I didn't complain. Complaining was a luxury for people who had safety nets. I didn't have one. I had deadlines, bills, and 1,000 moments of silence from a family who never once asked how I was doing. When I got an A on my design portfolio presentation, I texted my mom. No reply. 2 days later, she messaged, Vanessa just got certified for an advanced yoga course. She'll be teaching soon. Isn't that exciting? I stared at that message for a long time, and then put my phone down without replying. I stopped expecting anything after that. No congratulations. No visits. Not even a happy birthday. I worked, studied, paid rent, and patched up the bottom hem of my only winter coat with dental floss. I submitted every assignment like it was life or death, because to me it was. Then one day, something shifted. During my second year, I received an email. I had won a full-ride scholarship to a partner program in New York. Tuition, housing stipend, everything covered. I sat in the campus library holding my phone, staring at the screen while my hands trembled. I'd read the email 3 times before it sank in. It wasn't just a scholarship. It was an escape. That night, I walked home in the rain, soaked and shivering, but smiling so hard my cheeks ached. I had done it. Without help. Without family. Without anyone cheering me on. Just me. And for the first time in years, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I was going to be okay. I should have known better. New York was louder than I imagined. Taller, faster, and colder. But when I stepped off the Greyhound bus with a duffel bag on one shoulder and my laptop wrapped in a blanket, I felt something shift inside me. Not hope, exactly, more like permission. Permission to stop surviving and start becoming. The scholarship covered a room in student housing, but not in Manhattan. I ended up in a shared unit in Queens, 1 hour by subway from the campus of the New York School of Visual Arts. The room smelled like someone else's history. The mattress dipped in the middle, and the only window faced a brick wall. But it was mine. And for the first time I had more than one towel. That felt like a luxury. Orientation day was a blur of new faces and names I couldn't remember. I was sitting alone in the cafeteria when I saw her. Vanessa. She walked in like she was floating, new haircut, designer sneakers, a pristine leather backpack, probably picked by Mom. And behind her, Dad. He was carrying boxes. She laughed at something he said and touched his arm lightly. I froze mid-bite. I hadn't seen my father in over a year. No one told me she was coming here too. I found out later she had transferred to the marketing communication department. Same campus, different world. While I took the subway each day from my worn-out apartment in Queens, she wrote in from a rented apartment in Soho, paid for by our parents. Her schedule was light. Mine was packed with lectures, shifts at a pizza place, early mornings cleaning the lobby of the campus library, and weekend freelance gigs I picked up from Craigslist just to cover groceries. Sometimes I stayed up so late designing logos for strangers that I'd fall asleep with my face on the keyboard. We weren't in the same classes often, but that changed one semester when a core visual media course lumped us together in a group presentation. I tried to stay quiet during the first group meeting, but when the professor asked for campaign ideas, I suggested creating an interactive visual experience, animated graphics, layered storytelling, immersive design. Vanessa tilted her head and smiled. That's creative, but kind of complicated, right? Maybe something simpler, more fun, like spring fashion, bright colors, catchy slogans, something people will actually want to watch. The rest of the group nodded, and just like that, my idea disappeared. I still did the work. I created the graphics, edited the video, added transitions, synced music. Vanessa made the slideshow and presented it with perfect smiles and a playful tone. We got an A. After class, I received a private email from the professor. Hannah, I know who carried the creative vision for this project. You have leadership potential, but you need to stand by your ideas. Don't fade into the background. I reread that message all night, lying on my lumpy mattress, staring at the cracks on the ceiling. It wasn't a compliment, it was a mirror, and what I saw was someone too tired to fight for credit, because even when I succeeded, I still came second. Vanessa, meanwhile, was thriving. She had a blog about confidence and balance, ran the fashion club, and hosted Instagram lives with her followers. She was good at being seen. I wasn't jealous. I was exhausted from always being the foundation others stood on while I disappeared beneath. And it wasn't just her. My mother once called me, not to ask how I was, but to ask if I could send groceries to Vanessa. She's been so busy lately, poor thing. That night, I stood in my tiny kitchen, staring at a 49-cent pack of ramen, and wondered if my family even knew I still existed. Maybe I was the strong one. Maybe that's why they never thought to ask if I needed anything. But strength isn't the same as invincibility. And being forgotten doesn't mean you stop feeling. It just means you stop asking to be remembered. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the email arrived. I was working my shift at the creative agency that had accepted me as a design intern. Low pay, long hours, but real projects. Real validation. My phone buzzed, and I glanced down. The subject line read, "Congratulations, Benjamin Ford Fellowship Award." I froze. Then read it again, and again. The Benjamin Ford was more than just a scholarship. It was one of the most competitive fellowships in the country, awarded to 5 students nationwide for excellence in creative communication and leadership. It covered tuition, housing, a 3-month internship abroad, everything. My fingers trembled as I scrolled. I had done it. Me, Hannah Blake, the invisible twin. The backup plan, the strong one who didn't need help. I wanted to scream, to run, to tell someone, but no one was there. My roommates were out. My coworkers were buried in their screens. So I did what I always did when something big happened. I texted my mother. I kept it simple. Mom, I got the Benjamin Ford. Full fellowship. Only 5 selected nationwide. I'm one of them. I stared at the screen for 11 minutes. Then the message marked as seen. 30 minutes later, she replied. Oh, really? I'm cooking right now. I'll tell Vanessa to call you later. She just hit 20,000 views on her new makeup tutorial. I sat there in the break room, surrounded by the soft humming of vending machines and microwave beeps, reading that message over and over. My fingers curled around my phone like it might break. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just laughed. That dry, hollow kind of laugh that fills the room with silence. Vanessa never called. No one asked how much the scholarship was worth. No one asked where I'd be going. No one asked what it had taken for me to get here. Every sleepless night, every unpaid freelance job, every missed meal. I didn't even bother telling them about the award ceremony in New York, about the hotel reservation they paid for, the plane ticket, the invitation printed on thick, embossed cardstock that I held like it weighed more than gold. The night before the ceremony, I sat on the windowsill of my tiny room in Queens, knees pulled to my chest, holding that invitation like it was a letter from another world. For the first time, I didn't want to show it to them. I wanted to show it to her, my grandmother. So I did. I opened my phone, pulled up her old number, the one I hadn't deleted even though it no longer rang, and sent a message I knew no one would read. Grandma, I did it. You once said the world would see me. Today it did. The next evening, I walked into a ballroom filled with soft music and sparkling lights. The announcer called my name, and the room stood to applaud. Cameras flashed. Executives from media companies shook my hand. I gave a short speech I had practiced for weeks, and no one from my family saw a second of it. And yet, I felt full. Not because they weren't there, but because I had finally stopped needing them to be. Backstage, a woman approached me. Jacqueline Myers, creative director of Forge Creative Group. I had admired her work since high school. She extended her hand and said, I've read your file. You don't just have talent, you have grit. We'd like to offer you a spot in our mentorship program. Living expenses covered. No distractions. Just you and your future. I didn't know what to say, so I said the only thing I could. Thank you. That night, walking back to the hotel under the city lights, I didn't feel victorious. I felt steady, like I had finally landed somewhere that wasn't slipping out from under me. But even in that steadiness, a part of me still wondered, what else did they think I'd never be capable of? Because soon I'd find out. And this time, it involved an $850,000 house. It started with a letter from the bank. I'd just returned from my internship abroad, a 3-month program in the Netherlands that changed everything. I came back with a portfolio, a recommendation from Jacqueline Myers herself, and a quiet confidence I didn't recognize in the mirror. I'd moved into a tiny apartment in Brooklyn, furnished it with Craigslist finds and my own artwork. Life was finally mine. And then the letter arrived. A thick envelope, my full name on the front. Notification of change in property title 42, Magnolia Hill Drive, Franklin, Tennessee. That was my grandmother's house. The one with the wraparound porch and the kitchen that always smelled like cinnamon. The only place in my childhood where I felt safe. I called the bank. The woman on the other end explained, calmly, that the property had recently been transferred to a new sole owner, Vanessa Blake. She had filed paperwork to finalize the title in her name. Standard inheritance processing. But it's not hers, I said too calmly. My grandmother left that house to my father and me. I was co-named on the title after she passed. Nothing was ever finalized. There was a pause. Then the voice said, Ma'am, the deed had been submitted for final reassignment. Your signature is the only one missing to complete the transfer. I didn't hang up. I didn't speak. I just stared at the floor for a long, long time. So this was their plan. My parents had waited until I was away, until I was too far to question anything. Then they handed over the only piece of family legacy I had ever touched to Vanessa. No conversation, no explanation, just removed me from the picture. I took a deep breath and called my mother. She picked up on the third ring. Hannah, what a surprise. How was your trip? I skipped the small talk. Why is Vanessa listed as sole owner of Grandma Estelle's house? There was a beat of silence. Then, we figured it made the most sense. She's getting married soon, and they need a stable place. You're always traveling. You've made a life in New York. You didn't think I deserved a conversation? Mom sighed. The same exasperated sound she used when I asked too many questions as a child. Hannah, you're independent. You've always been strong. You don't need a house to define you. That's when something in me clicked. She was right. I didn't need the house, but they did. And more importantly, Vanessa did, because what none of them knew was that the house still had a mortgage, a small one, tied to my grandmother's late life renovation loan. And because I was still legally attached to the deed until I signed off, any attempt to finalize the transfer would flag with the bank. So I did what any overlooked daughter would do. I said nothing. I didn't sign. I didn't call. I simply waited. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. Vanessa. Hannah, she said, her voice tight, rehearsed. Hey. So, I think there's been a mix-up with the house paperwork. The bank says there's an issue, something about a missing cosign. I kept my voice neutral. That's interesting. No one mentioned I was still on the deed. Well, yeah, but we assumed you wouldn't mind. I mean, you're in New York now. You have your own life. I almost smiled. Exactly. I do. And I like my life just the way it is. There was silence on the other end. Then a sharper tone. Hannah, this isn't fair. We already moved in. We're renovating. We're paying contractors. You should have waited. Hannah, please. If you don't sign off, the bank's threatening foreclosure. It'll destroy our credit. We could lose everything. My heart didn't even flutter. Then maybe next time, you'll ask before taking what's not yours. I hung up. I didn't answer their texts. I didn't reply to the email from Dad that said, "Let's be reasonable here." I let the clock run out. 30 days later, the bank moved forward with foreclosure proceedings. The house, the $850,000 gift that wasn't theirs to give, was reclaimed by the same institution that had once mailed me a second-hand loan statement in my grandmother's name. My mother called one last time. Hannah, what you're doing is cruel. I breathed in slowly and said, No, Mom. What you did was cruel. I'm just refusing to play along. And for the first time in my life, silence felt like power. The day the foreclosure notice was nailed to the front door of 42 Magnolia Hill Drive, I was in a brainstorming session at Forge Creative's Midtown office, sipping coffee from a porcelain cup and sketching wireframes on a glass wall. I didn't know what happened. I didn't have to, because for once in my life, I didn't care. Vanessa sent me 3 texts that week. The first was panicked, filled with capital letters and accusations. The second was quieter. The third was just one sentence, "You win." I never replied. Instead, I focused on what I had built, what no one gave me, what no one could take away. My mornings started with a 10-minute walk through Brooklyn's brownstone-lined streets. My nights ended in a tiny but warm apartment lit by fairy lights and cluttered with sketches, books, and the scent of eucalyptus. I was 25, fully employed, creatively fulfilled, and more alone than I'd ever been. But this time it wasn't loneliness. It was peace, the kind that comes from no longer waiting for someone else's approval. Sometimes, when I scrolled through social media, I'd see Vanessa's new account, rebranded from fashion to mindful living. Pictures of houseplants and gratitude quotes. A single post about losing her home. Thousands of likes. "Stay strong, Queen," the comments read. I didn't feel spite. I didn't roll my eyes. I felt nothing. That's when I knew the healing was real. One day, an email arrived from Jacqueline Myers. She had recommended me for a national project, designing an interactive exhibit for the Museum of American Women in Leadership. I was stunned. The project was massive, high profile, the kind of job that could take my career to another level. I forwarded the email to my professor from New York SVA with the subject line, "Thought you might like this." He replied in 10 minutes, knew it was only a matter of time. "Proud of you." That evening, I stood at my kitchen window, watching the lights of Manhattan flicker in the distance, holding a glass of wine. I thought about what success used to mean to me. Acceptance, finally being seen, finally being enough. But now, it just meant breathing easy, creating what I loved, paying rent on time, hanging my own art on the wall. No need for applause, just space. Then came the call I didn't expect. It was late fall, a Saturday afternoon. The leaves in Prospect Park were turning amber and gold. I was on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, sketching ideas for the museum installation. My phone rang. Dad. I stared at the screen for a while before answering. Hey, I said flatly. He cleared his throat. Your mom, she saw your name in an article. About that museum thing. She said, maybe we didn't really understand you. A long silence. Then, softly, congratulations, Hannah. I didn't reply right away. Because how do you respond to a lifetime of being ignored? With one sentence. I thanked him, politely, then hung up. Not because I was angry, but because I had nothing left to say. 2 days later, Vanessa called. Her voice was smaller than I remembered. I saw your exhibit video, she said. Didn't know you were that good. I let the silence stretch. I'm sorry, she added, for everything. I didn't feel satisfaction, or revenge, or warmth. I just said thank you, and meant it, because for the first time, she wasn't talking from a pedestal. She was human, flawed, tired, and maybe, finally, learning what it meant to grow without someone paving the road for her. That night, I wrote in my journal. Sometimes justice doesn't come with sirens or headlines. Sometimes it arrives in the quiet moments, in the absence of bitterness, in the peace of knowing you walked away and never looked back. And that peace, that was worth far more than $850,000. I turned 26 on a clear October morning in Brooklyn. There was no party, no candles, just a cup of dark roast coffee, a flaky croissant from the bakery downstairs, and sunlight pouring across the hardwood floor of my apartment. I sat cross-legged by the window, sketchbook open, and realized I wasn't waiting for anyone to call. Not because I was bitter, because I didn't need it anymore. My mother did text, 3 hours late. Happy birthday. Hope you're well. No emojis. No questions. Just 5 words. I replied with a simple thank you. Vanessa messaged too. I saw a girl at the cafe reading about your exhibit. She said you were her favorite artist. Thought you'd want to know. That one made me pause. I smiled, not because it fixed anything, but because it didn't try to. The truth was, I didn't think about the past as much anymore. Not in anger, not even in sadness. More like a chapter one had finally turned, when I no longer needed to reread. I still called home sometimes, on holidays, birthdays, the occasional update about someone's health. Mom talked more now, usually about the weather or her garden. Dad stayed mostly silent. Vanessa would jump in with something about a class she was taking or a new podcast she liked. We never spoke about the house, or the years in between, and maybe that was for the best, because some wounds don't heal by picking at them. They just fade into soft scars, the kind you forget until a certain light hits. One Sunday afternoon, I took the subway to Central Park, sketchbook in hand. The leaves had begun to turn, and a violinist played somewhere nearby. I sat on a bench by the lake, watching people walk by, some with strollers, some holding hands, some alone like me. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was missing anything. Not a house, not a family, not even closure. I had built something better, not grand or loud or Instagram perfect, but mine. My kitchen was small but warm, my bookshelf crooked but full. I had a plant I hadn't killed in over a year, friends who showed up without needing a reason, coworkers who valued my opinion, not my presence in someone else's shadow. And at the center of it all, me. Not Hannah, the older sister, not the strong one, not the responsible one, just Hannah. Sometimes I still thought about Magnolia Hill Drive, the creaking steps, the porch swing, the cinnamon smell in Grandma Estelle's kitchen. But I didn't miss it, because I understood something now. That place never really belonged to me. It was built on the illusion that love could be measured by duty. That silence meant strength. That being ignored was a sign of resilience. But love, real love, asks, waits, sees you, and I had finally found that. Not from them. from me. That evening, I hung a new frame on my living room wall. Not a diploma, not an award, just a quote, hand-lettered on thick cream paper. You are enough. Always were. Always will be. Every time I come home late, every time doubt creeps in, every time I catch myself remembering that old life, I look at that wall, and I remember. I wasn't born into a perfect home, but I learned how to build one with effort, boundaries, and a heart that no longer begs to be seen.